Ugly fox. There was a schoolboy named Mu, a native of Changsha, whose family was so poor that he had not yet worn cotton in winter. One night, Mr. Mu Sheng sat alone in his home, and suddenly came in a woman, dressed in gorgeous clothes, but dark and ugly, asking him with a laugh, "Don't you feel cold?" Asked by surprise who she was, the woman replied, "I'm a fox. Pity you are cold and lonely and want to sleep with you." Mu Sheng was afraid of her as a fox and hated her for looking ugly, and shouted loudly. The woman pulls out a piece of the original and puts it on the table, saying, "If you promise, I'll give you this." Mu Sheng met Yuan Bao and happily agreed to it. Without betting, the woman took off her coat and laid it on. As the two slept until dawn, the woman woke up and ordered, "I give you the treasure. You go and buy cloth to make bedding. The rest of the money, make a cotton dress, buy some cabbage. That's enough. As long as you and I are close forever, there will be no need for poverty. We'll leave when we're done." Mr. Mu told his wife, who was delighted, and immediately bought cloth to sew the bedding. When Hu came in at night, she saw the bedding and liked to say, "Your wife is working too hard," and left the money for the day before he left. Since then, Hu has come every night, and every time she leaves, she must give some money and goods. After more than a year of this, the Michon family's home was tidy and beautiful, and the clothes of the entire family were fresh, and they became wealthy. After Mu Sheng became rich, the gifts Fox gave him were dwindling. As a result, Ms. Mason grew increasingly disgusted with her. Once, he hired a fox expelling priest and painted a sign on the door. When Miss Hu arrived, she bit off the symbol, ripped it apart, and threw it on the floor. "Ungrateful? You've reached the peak," she said, gesturing to Mr. Mu as she entered the house. "How could you do that to me? If you're bored with me, I'll leave by myself. But the relationship is broken. You have to give me back what you accepted from me." After that, I left furiously. Mu Sheng was afraid and told the Taoist. The Taoist priest set up the cord and prepared to exorcise the fox. The monk fell to the ground and bled. "Look, I've cut off an ear." The crowd was stunned and scattered. The Taoist each also fled with his ears covered. At this point, stones as big as pots were smashed into the Mu Sheng Wu's house. The pots and pans of doors and windows, all smashed, no goals. Mr. Mu, who had drilled under the bed, curled up and was frightened to death. Later, the orphan comes in with a monster with a dog's tail in her arms, puts the monster in front of the bed, and calls it, "Hee hee. Go eat the bad guy's foot." The monster snapped at Mr. Mu's foot, with sharp teeth like a blade. Mu Sheng was terrified and wanted to retract his feet, but his limbs could not move. The monster chewed on his toes and squeaked. "Mu Sheng is in pain. I'm deeply grateful," Ms. Hu said. "Give me all the gold and silver treasures. And don't hide them," Mu Sheng promised in a hurry. And Hu yelled, "Ha! Then the monster won't bite. Mu Sheng can't climb up. Just tell Fox where to hide the money." Foxtrot searched by herself. Only 200 silver pieces were made, apart from her jewelry. The fox shouted, "Hee hee." The monster nibbled on Mu Sheng's feet again. Mu Sheng begged for mercy, and Hu Nu gave him 600 yuan in 10 days to pay off. When Mu Sheng promised, she carried the monster and left. After a long time, the family gathered and dragged Mr. Mu out of bed. He was bleeding from his feet and had lost 2 toes. "Look inside, the belongings are searched. There's only one broken quilt left." They put it over Musen and let him lie down. Mu Sheng was afraid that Fox would come again 10 days later, and sold messenger and clothes, and made up 600 silver coins. 10 days later, Fox returned. Mu Sheng hurried to hand over the silver to her, and the orphan took it and left quietly. "I haven't been here since." Mu Sheng's injury on his foot, it took him 6 months to heal, and his family is as poor as ever. Later, Hu followed a woman surnamed Yu in the neighboring village. Yu was a farmer in a poor family. 3 years later, in addition to paying the official food tax on time, Yu also built large apartment blocks. And the family wore fancy clothes, most of which were originally from the Mu family. Mu Sheng saw it and didn't dare ask. One time, Mu Sheng happened to go to the wild and ran into a fox girl on the road, and he kneeled on the side of the road. Silently, who wrapped 50, 60 and 20 silver pieces in a white handkerchief and threw them at Mu Sheng at a distance. She returned and left. Later, after Yu's death, the orphan girl came to his house from time to time, but the belongings often disappeared. Yu's son saw her again and went to church, praying from afar. "When my father dies, we are all your children. How can you stand by and watch us be poor, even if you don't feel sorry for us?" Fox listened and laughed. "I never got to home again."
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.